Every great American family story has a beginning, a meet-cute, a moment when two people who would later become legendary somehow found each other in a world that was not built to bring them together. For the Roloff family, that moment happened in the summer of 1986 in Detroit, Michigan, on a basketball court at a national gathering of little people from across the United States. Matt Roloff, 24 years old, from California, with dystrophic dysplasia, the kind of confident charm that comes from surviving 15 surgeries and still believing in his future. Amy Knight, 23 years old, from Michigan, with achondroplasia, painfully shy, attending her first ever Little People of America National Conference, having never been to anything like it before. The two of them with no idea that they were about to start a 30-year love story that would produce 4 children, a 109-acre farm, 25 seasons of reality television, 8 grandchildren, and eventually, painfully, one of the most documented divorces in American cable history. Tonight on LPBW Update, we are walking through the complete timeline of Matt and Amy Roloff's marriage, how they met, how they fell in love over a long-distance romance, how they got engaged in a whirlwind, how they married, how they built the empire that would make them household names, and how, after nearly 3 decades together, the marriage ended. Because before any of the Caryn Chandler drama, before any of the farm fights, before any of the Chris Marek chapters, there was just Matt and Amy, 2 young little people who chose each other. And the story of what they built together and what they lost is the foundation of every other Roloff story that came after. Let us go back to the very beginning. The Little People of America National Conference in 1986 was held in Detroit, Michigan. The conference, then as now, was the largest annual gathering of people with dwarfism in the United States. Thousands of attendees from across the country came together for workshops, social events, sports, and the simple human pleasure of being in a community of people who looked like them and shared their experiences. Matt Roloff had been attending these conferences for years. He was already well known in the LPA community. He played basketball, he socialized. He was, by all reports, one of the more outgoing young men in the organization. Amy Knight, by contrast, was attending her first LPA conference at age 23. She had been raised in a faith-centered family in Michigan. She had been, by her own description, sheltered. She had not dated much. Her first date had not happened until she was 17. She arrived at the Detroit conference shy, uncertain, and not entirely sure how to navigate a space full of strangers who happened to share her medical condition. It was on a basketball court that Matt first noticed her, specifically at a Motor City Micronauts basketball game, where teams of little people competed in front of conference attendees. Matt has described, in a season 25 confessional on the show, the moment he first saw Amy. He has said, with the kind of romantic detail that men only remember when the moment really mattered, that she was striking, that she was different, that he could tell she would be a great mother someday. That is, by his account, what he thought when he first laid eyes on her. He could tell she would be a great mom. Amy, for her part, has described being drawn to Matt's energy. She has said he had a zest for life that surprised her. She has said he did not seem to see being a little person as a barrier in any way. She has said he had a fresh approach to looking at things that attracted her to him. The two of them spent time together over the course of the conference. They talked, they laughed, they got to know each other, and by the time the conference ended and they returned to their respective homes, Matt to California and Amy to Michigan, they had decided to try to make something work. The next year was a long-distance romance. There were no smartphones, there was no texting, there were no video calls. There were just phone calls, letters, and the occasional trip across the country to see each other in person. By Amy's own count, they met in person only 4 times before they got engaged. 4 times. That is an astonishingly small number of in-person dates for a couple to commit to a lifetime together. But in 1986 and 1987, between California and Michigan, with both of them working and Amy being a college student at Central Michigan University, 4 meetings was what they could manage. They made it work with phone conversations. They made it work with letters. They made it work with the kind of intense focus that long-distance couples either develop or fail at. Matt and Amy developed it, and by the summer of 1987, they were ready to take the next step. Matt proposed to Amy after their fourth in-person meeting. The proposal, by the standards of modern celebrity engagements, was simple. There was no helicopter. There was no spectacle. There was just a man asking a woman if she would marry him. She said yes. And they began planning a wedding that would happen, remarkably, just a few months later. The engagement was, by any measure, fast. 3 months between the proposal and the wedding, after a relationship of just over a year, with only a handful of in-person meetings. But Amy has been clear, in interviews over the years, that she did not want the distance to hold her back from being with the man she had chosen. She trusted herself. She trusted Matt. She trusted what they had built in those phone calls and letters and brief visits, and she was ready to commit. The wedding took place on September 12, 1987, in Redford, Michigan. The ceremony was in keeping with the Roloff and Knight family values, faith-centered, family-focused, modest, and joyful. Amy was 25. Matt was 25. They were two young little people, both from families with their own histories of dwarfism, both with their own dreams about what their adult lives could look like, beginning a marriage that neither of them, in that moment, could have predicted would become so significant in so many ways. They danced, they cut cake, they started their lives together, and then Amy moved out west to be with Matt as he continued his career in Silicon Valley. The early years of the marriage were the kind of ordinary American family building that nobody films. Matt continued his computer programming and sales career. Amy worked as a secretary while also pursuing her aspirations of being a wife and mother. They lived in California. They saved money. They thought about where they wanted to settle long term. By 1990, they had welcomed their first children, twin boys Zach and Jeremy. The twins arrived on May 10, 1990. Zach, like his father, was born with dwarfism. Jeremy was of average height. The Roloff family had begun, and from that moment forward, Matt and Amy were not just a couple anymore. They were parents. They were responsible for two small lives. Their world expanded and contracted at the same time. Expanded with the love, contracted with the responsibility. Then came the move to Oregon. Matt got better job opportunities at Sequent Computer Systems in the Portland area, and the family relocated from California to Oregon in the early 1990s. They moved to the Hillsborough area. They began looking for a property to make their own, and in 1990, the same year their twin sons were born, Matt purchased the property that would become Roloff Farms. The land was undeveloped. The vision Matt had for it was personal. He wanted to build a place where his children could grow up surrounded by space, animals, structures to climb on, and the kind of imaginative play that small kids dream about. The fact that it would also become a pumpkin patch and a reality television destination was, at that point, completely unforeseeable. It was just a piece of land that a young father bought with his life savings to give his growing family a home. The next several years were spent building. Matt built the western town with his own hands. He built the castle. He built the pirate ship. He built the tree houses. He built tunnels and structures and play areas that grew over time into the fairy tale destination that the show would later capture. Amy, meanwhile, was the engine of family life. She managed the household, she raised the boys, and she had two more children, daughter Molly in 1993 and son Jacob in 1997. By the time Jacob was born, Matt and Amy had 4 children, ages 7, 7, 4, and newborn. They had a farm in development. They had Matt's expanding career and businesses. They had Amy's emerging interest in cooking, advocacy, and community work. They were a busy, complicated, ambitious family, and they were just getting started. The pumpkin patch at Roloff Farms began drawing visitors in the mid-1990s. Word spread locally, then regionally. By the early 2000s, Roloff Farms was one of the most popular fall destinations in the Portland area. Matt and Amy were running the operation together. They were raising 4 children together. They were balancing all of it. By 2006, when TLC came knocking with the offer to film a reality television show about their family, Matt and Amy were ready. The pitch made sense to them. They would tell their story. They would educate the public about dwarfism. They would, in passing, get paid to be themselves. They said yes. And in March of 2006, Little People, Big World premiered on TLC. The show changed everything. The Roloff family became, almost overnight, one of the most recognizable families in America. The pumpkin patch traffic exploded. Matt's advocacy work gained a national platform. Amy's interest in cooking, speaking, and charity work found audiences they had never had access to before. The children, all four of them, grew up in front of cameras. The marriage continued. But the pressures changed. The dynamics changed. The expectations changed. Matt and Amy were no longer just running a family farm. They were running a media empire built around their family. The cameras were always there. The production team was always around. The storylines were always being shaped. Whatever issues existed in the marriage before reality television were now being amplified by the constant scrutiny of being publicly observed. The cracks started showing in the early 2000s. Matt and Amy began to talk publicly, on the show and in interviews, about the strains in their marriage. They had different visions for the future. They had different temperaments. They had different ways of handling stress, conflict, and growth. They went to counseling. They tried to work things out. But over the course of years, it became clear that the marriage was reaching its end. In March of 2015, Matt and Amy announced publicly that they were separating. They would, they said, remain cordial as co-parents and co-business owners. 3 months later, in June of 2015, they filed jointly as co-petitioners for divorce in an Oregon circuit court. Amy was 52. Matt was 53. Their youngest child, Jacob, was 18. The divorce was finalized in May of 2016, 29 years after their September 1987 wedding. 26 years after Zach and Jeremy were born. The marriage that had started at a basketball court in Detroit was officially over. The years that followed have been documented on this channel in many of our other videos. Matt began dating Caryn Chandler, the former farm manager, in 2017. Amy began dating Chris Marek the same year. Amy sold her portion of Roloff Farms to Matt in 2020. Amy married Chris in August of 2021. Matt and Caryn got engaged in April of 2023, but ended the engagement in July of 2025. The post-divorce chapter has been, in many ways, more dramatic than the marriage that preceded it. The farm sales, the family rifts, the book revelations, the breakups, all of it happened after Matt and Amy officially ended their marriage. And all of it has continued to shape how fans understand the Roloff story. But here is what is most remarkable about Matt and Amy Roloff in 2026. They are friends. They are co-grandparents. They are family. After everything they went through, after the divorce, after Amy's memoir, after Matt's 8-year relationship with Caryn, after the public drama, after the family conflicts, Matt and Amy have found their way to a relationship that, while not romantic, is functional and even warm. The August 9th, 2025 photo of Matt at Lila's sporting event with Amy and Chris was one piece of evidence of that. The Christmas 2025 family gathering, where Matt and Amy and all 3 of their adult sons gathered together with their wives, was another. There are photos from that Christmas of Matt sitting on a couch beside his twin sons, Zach and Jeremy, with Jacob and Chris Marek standing behind them, all of them wearing matching blue and black striped sweaters. Amy was there, Tori was there, Audrey was there, Isabel was there. The whole family, with the possible exception of Molly and Joel, who may have been celebrating separately, came together. They posed for goofy photos. They had dinner. They acted, for that one evening at least, like the family they had been in the early years before all the cameras showed up. That is, in the end, the most important truth about the Matt and Amy Roloff marriage. It did not last. But it produced 4 extraordinary children. It produced 8 grandchildren. It produced a property and a business that changed the family forever. It produced a legacy that, even now, 10 years after the divorce was finalized, continues to shape American conversation about families with dwarfism. The marriage failed in its primary form, but the family that came from it has, over time, found its way back to each other. And that is something to celebrate, even in the context of a marriage that did not survive. If Matt and Amy had never met at that basketball court in 1986, none of this would exist. No Roloff Farms, no Little People, Big World, no Jeremy and Audrey, no Zach and Tori, no Jacob and Isabel, no Molly and Joel, no 8 grandchildren, no 25 seasons of reality television, no advocacy work, no cookbooks, no memoirs, no charity foundations, no farm sale dramas. None of the stories we have told on this channel over the last 15 videos would exist without that moment in 1986, that whirlwind year of long-distance romance, that September 1987 wedding in Redford, Michigan. The whole Roloff universe begins there, with 2 young little people who had no idea what they were starting when they decided to give each other a chance. What can we learn from the Matt and Amy Roloff marriage timeline? A few things stand out. First, great love stories do not always have happy endings, but they often have meaningful ones. Matt and Amy's marriage ended. The family they built lives on. Second, that marriages tested by extreme public scrutiny face challenges most ordinary marriages will never have to deal with. Being on television for over a decade changes a relationship in ways that are hard to undo. Third, that even after a divorce, the family can be repaired. Matt and Amy are not back together. They probably never will be, but they are together at family gatherings. They are together at sporting events for their grandchildren. They are together at Christmas. They have rebuilt something that is not a marriage, but is something else, something that matters. Fourth, and finally, that the choice you make at 23 to commit to someone you barely know can shape the rest of your life in ways you cannot predict. Amy chose Matt after 4 in-person meetings. Matt chose Amy after a basketball court glance. Those choices, made quickly, in the optimism of youth, set in motion everything that came after. So I want to know what you think. Do you believe Matt and Amy could have saved their marriage if reality television had never happened? Or do you think the show only revealed strains that were already there? Do you find their 2025 Christmas reunion as moving as I do? Or do you think it was just for show? And do you think their story is, in the end, a love story that lasted 30 years? Or a love story that ended too soon? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, subscribe to LPBW Update, and ring the bell so you do not miss our weekly Roloff family stories. We are committed to bringing you the truth, the timeline, and the heart of this remarkable American family. I will see you on the next one.